One of the greatest seasons in anime history has ended. With the last episode of Chainsaw Man, people are debating about which new anime will take the crown for the winter 2023 season. Which, according to Mal, is cute girls making electrodomestics? After getting blessed with one of the best seasons ever, Winter 2023 comes out as one of those party-sized cheap bags. Lots of different things that don't really fit your taste, but you just eat them anyway. For now, let's look at the returning animes. The Vampire Dies in No Time returns for a second season with John the Armadillo stealing the show as always. Inspector comes back with a paranormal detective drama. Fruits of Evolution brings back our gorilla waifu, and by the grace of God answers the question, what if we use slimes to run a dry cleaner? Nagatoro is still teasing Senpai with one of the best rom-coms ever. Danmachi is still asking the question, is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon? Bofuri is still a better fantasy show than The Shield Hero, even if it's just a VR game. Gigachat Anos keeps bringing the big daddy energy. Bungo Stray Dogs is back for a fourth season, giving the backstory for the detective agency. Tokyo Revengers is still expecting us to believe that 14-year-old kids fight bad gangs. And finally, we have the awaited return of Vinland Saga Season 2. This is going to be a wild ride. This season returning animes will need to do some heavy lifting, because compared to the previous season, this season feels like a lot of quantity but not that much of a quality. So let's run down the new winter 2022 seasonal animes. First, we have the return of acclaimed 90s anime Trigun, with a whole new 3D look made possible by Studio Orange. Both new and old anime fans will have something to talk about. As I have never watched the original series, I can say with my unbiased opinion that I think the story and world building is looking really interesting, but the CG is putting me off a bit. Aside from Bash, who looks great in his new design, and of course the dynamic action scenes, I feel like everything else has been downgraded by the CG, especially when you have clunky scenes like this one. Same can be said for Kaina of the Great Snow. The first episode immerses you in a fantastic world where our main protagonist has lived all his life at the top of a tree as humanity left the ground because of an ice age, only to discover a girl escaping from a group of individuals riding the snow. The world looks interesting, but the CG is really putting me off on this one. On the other hand, I have some high hopes for the Fire Hunter. Before this first episode, I have never heard anything about this anime, and coming in blind was the best experience. In a world where people burn just by looking at fire, humanity has regressed for a combination of feudal Japan with a bit of some technological advancements as a group of hunters protect humanity, and a girl is tasked with bringing the dog and a weapon of a hunter who died protecting her back to the capital. With a unique animation that looks both old style and new at the same time, you should be looking forward for this anime. For romance anime, we have a few to choose from. The Angel Next Door Spoils Me Rotten comes out as the most generic rom-com of the season, with two neighbors that slowly develop feelings for each other. How original. Sugar Apple Fairy Tale is a shoujo that focuses on a young girl that wants to become a silver sugar she just wants to be a confectioner, okay? In a world where fairies are treated as slaves, our main girl buys a handsome but foul-mouthed fairy to protect her in her trip, and slowly love starts to develop. Endo and Kobayashi Live has to be one of the most unique premises in the villainous genre. As two high school students realize that the prince in their otome game can hear their voices, they are set on saving their favorite character, the cute tsundere villainess. Seriously, if you have any love for the villainous genre, you have to watch this one. And for tomboy lovers, the best rom-com of the season has to be Tomo-chan is a Girl. as a boyish girl called Tomo tries to make her childhood friend realize that she's a girl and make him fall in love with her. All while getting progressively more angry and punching him every time she treats him like one of the guys. With a funny protagonist and interesting supporting characters that bring something new different to the table, Tomo-chan is set for the stars. Moving on to the mainstream media, we have the generic batch of isekais and fantasies for the season. I swear to God, every season we have basically the same show with different names, and this season is no exception. The Ice Blade Sorcerer Shall Rule the World is the generic story of one of the most powerful wizards in the world that decides to go back to school and live a slow life. We also have chilling in my 30s after getting fired from the Demon King's army. As a 30-year-old, leave the Demon King army only to realize that he was a human and is extremely powerful for human standards. So he goes to a village to live a slow life. Or how about the reincarnation of the strongest exorcist, in which an exorcist reincarnates and wants to hide his powers and I guess you know where this is going. At least this last one has a uniqueness to it, with the main protagonist invoking spiritual beings from a different realm that are not native to this world, but otherwise it is the same show as always. Now imagine you get transported to another world. Everyone else got cool powers to fight the Demon Lord. You're expecting to use magic or have super strength, but you end up with the ability to use Amazon? Campfire cooking in another world with my absurd skill is basically a guy realizing that the kingdom is kind of sus, so he teaches the country ping adventurers with food that can't be obtained in this world, only to catch the eye of a hungry Fenrir, who makes a pact with you and will protect you as long as you keep giving him food. You know, the usual. And of course, all of this with the power of online shopping. Adventurers who don't believe in humanity will save the world tells the story of 4 adventurers who had bad experiences with other people, so they lost faith in humanity. And after listening to all of their stories, I can't help but think that it was kind of their fault. I mean, bro, I understand you want to pay the girl for her help, but maybe pay her parents instead of her. And what is the need to pat her head so much? I know it's not your fault, but it's kind of not your fault either. Aside from that, it kind of looks like a generic adventure fantasy anime. Reborn to Master the Blade is one of those few isekais that I actually enjoyed, as a strong king decides to reincarnate in a different world and focus only on his sword. But oops, he is reincarnated as a girl. The story is nothing out of the ordinary, but weirdly enough, I'm enjoying this one. And Farming Life in Another World tells the story of a man that after dying, decides he wants to learn farming skill and, say it with me, live a slow life. This one feels unique in the way that it focuses more on farming and village creation than anything else. And so far, I found it both entertaining and educational, but I am dreading the moment all the girls start coming and this devolves into harem anime. Moving on to some different animes. We have Ippon, which is basically cute girls doing judo. So far, the story hasn't caught my attention yet, but I will give it a few more episodes. Body Daddies is the inferior version of Spy Family, as 2 hitmen take care of a child while trying to do their work. But if you want some real spies, how about cute girls doing spy stuff in Spy Classroom? As a group of failed spy girls are trained by the greatest spy in the world in order to do a mission impossible. With a varied cast of cute girls and the interesting concepts of spies trying to one-up their teacher, this type of story always catches my eye. Now, for the cultured individuals, we have the usual fetishes for anime fans. You like genderbender, but also like lollies? How about Onimai, in which a scientist transforms her older brother into a small girl and proceeds to do cute stuff with her? Proceed to delete your data once you finish each episode unless you want some unexpected visits. Or how about being treated like a dog? Well, better yet, become a dog. In My Life as Inuka's Dog, in which Inuka has a dog fetish and insists on taking baths with her dog, who in reality is her classmate inside the body of a dog, because of course. And lastly, we have the return of the mangaka behind To Love Ru, as he brings us the 3rd gender bender for the season in Ayakashi Triangle. Honestly, this feels like a huge downgrade from To Love Ru. At least that one had a main guy who wasn't a pervert on purpose. In this one the guy is like, whatever, I will just touch her tights. So a magical cat decides to turn him into a girl out of jealousy, you know, the usual. There is also the more adult, seinen-focused animes. First is The Legend of the Heroes, which apparently is based off the Trial series games, to which I know nothing about, so it is difficult to me to get invested in the story. But maybe for the fans of the games, it will be a treat to see some development in the world. Mononogatari is apparently not part of the Monogatari series, and it's also not interesting at all, as a guy hates spirits because one of them killed his siblings, and so he's sent to live in a house full of them. Yeah. Giant Beast of Ours feels like a failed attempt at building a dark fantasy world full of giant beasts and magical paladins. I don't know why, but I feel like I've seen this anime like 3 different times in 3 different series. A Tale of Outcast feels like a weird combination of Ancient Magus Bride and Somali of the Forest Spirit, but so far it has actually been decent. And we finally got the adaptation for the critically acclaimed Nier Automata. First episode was just what I expected, full of action with a bit of world building, and only MAPPA could deliver a fighting sequence that is also a fan service. But the second episode felt kind of slow, so I'm not 100% sold on the anime yet. And lastly, for the big hits on the season. First, we have the magical revolution of the reincarnated princess and the genius young lady. With a weird mix of villainous story with a more generic isekai genre, our story follows a princess with no magical ability, as she decides to use magical stones to create different artifacts to make the life of people easier and to fulfill her dream of flying. With a great chemistry between our 2 main duo and the looming consequences of giving magical powers to the lower classes, this has to be a must-watch for everyone. Next is Handyman Saito in Another World. This is a weird one, as it's not really a linear show, but rather a bunch of short stories put together, following Saito and his adventuring group as they tackle different dungeons as he uses his skills to do anything, from armor repairing to opening locks and creating different things. This is the perfect isekai anime that has this kind of vibe to slowly enjoy without caring too much about the plot or other things. And lastly, we have saving 80,000 gold in Another World for my retirement. As a young girl, sorry, an adult woman acquires the ability to move between worlds. She decides to use these powers to sell products and acquire gold coins in order to save 2 billion yen. As she realizes that she will need weapons and knowledge, she uses her skills to find weapon sellers and armed combat trainers. All of this while learning about the feudal Middle Ages to prepare for her otherworldly trip. This has to be one of the most unique premises I ever heard for an isekai. And finally, we have a way to make sure that our protagonist doesn't forget that she's indeed coming from another world and doesn't blend as a simple fantasy anime. And those are all the animes for Winter 2023 season. This season is heavy on isekai and has a lot of options with slightly above average quality, but nothing that really stands out from the pack. Let me know what you guys think of this season. Until then, see you guys next time.